Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive's post-fight podcast for UFC 137 and the opening event tournament recap for our prediction tournament. I'm going to talk about the results as you see scrolling across the page are the head-to-head matchups and how you fared in the first event at UFC 137 and what you're going to have to do at UFC 138 to get the win and advance to the second round. Let's talk about the tournament briefly. A lot of good matchups. A number of matchups are within 5 or less points. Nobody's tied, and I don't think there's any matchup because there's 30 points to be gotten at UFC 138 as well. No one is walking away with it, so it's very much, anybody's game in almost every single setup. A couple shoutouts. I look at Cartbuster, who had finished with 22 points, and Conrad's opponent 20. That is a huge matchup there between those two users because they both did very well. Best user on the night went to Klubel at 23 points. Other notable ones, Tim Sox, Toronto Expo, and Kane Gotti all scored 21 of available 30 points. So very well on their point. But as I said, you have to keep it going. You can't have one good night and ride it. You need to do well at UFC 138, and that will get you to the next round. And then, of course, the rounds after that will consist of 3 events. So good luck to everyone. Couple changes we had to make. AMI International, I believe that was his name, had dropped off the face of the planet. I couldn't get a response out of him looking for his picks. So nothing but winners. Welcome to the tournament. You got his spot. Didn't get off to the greatest start, unfortunately. I'm sure he'll rebound at UFC 138 and hopefully close the gap. Looking team takeover 316, and that one has the lead in that matchup. But nothing but winners, definitely. I'm sure he'll be looking for nothing but winners. And also, some of you probably got the email before. MMA analyst dropped out of the tournament, did not like the setup because I left one fight off of the list of fights that you could pick from. He got replaced by Ninja Death Cult. Far better name, like the name. Either way, I'm not too concerned about people dropping out of the tournament. This tournament is going to, this is a tough tournament to win no matter whether you're an online expert or somebody just doing it for fun and trying to show, you know what you're talking about. Either way, don't be scared, homie, as Nick Diaz would say. And good luck to Ninja Death Cult, who took his place, and thank you for stepping up to the table. I've got a huge list of people that wanted to be in this tournament, and that's another thing, guys. I do have a waiting list, and nothing but winners stepped up to take that spot. If you're sending your picks in, like I said, the deadline is the start of the prelims, but what I would like is if you're going to wait to the last second, or at least the last day, send me a message earlier in the day, or earlier in the week saying, I'm getting your emails, and yes, I will be sending my picks, and that way I'm not worried about someone not getting their picks and having to chase someone down to replace them, because it's not fun if someone gets an automatic walkthrough to the next round because their opponent doesn't show up. Either way, I know it's not life and death, and we'll make do, but please try and get your picks in ASAP, or at least send me an email, let me know you're alive and well. Good set of matchups, and it was a good card overall. I'm going to get into that in a second. A very good card. Enjoyed it muchly. And again, check out the picks. Let me know what you think, and I will update. This for the next show. The next event will be, as I said, will be UFC 138. There'll be an email included in the link that you got with this page. And for that show, we will be doing 10 of the 11 fights on that card. Chris Cope versus Che Mills, Rob Broughton versus Philip DeFries, Michihiro Omigawa versus Jason Young, so Real Diamante versus Anthony Parash, Chris Carrasco versus Vaughn Lee. Those are all in the prelims. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then on the main card, Paul Taylor versus Anthony Angiaquani, Terry Adam versus Edward Falalotto, Thiago Alves versus Papi Abdi. Hope I'm saying that right. I wasn't sure when I was doing the actual prediction show. Brad Pickett versus Enan Barrow. And in the main event, Chris Lieben, Mark Munoz, the 5-round fight, which will be very interesting. Keep that in mind. So again, get your picks in as soon as possible. But again, don't feel rushed. Just get them in. But if you're going to take your time, let me know you're taking your time and that you will get them in. I don't need to look for someone to replace you, because the one person I just could not find them, could not get a hold of. Like, some of my emails didn't find people. They went to junk box, or I just typed something wrong and the thing it didn't go to who it needed to go to. Either way, and I apologize, but I won't be posting the actual results simply because it's just one more thing I want to avoid having to do. But you'll see the points. I'm not going to post who everybody picked. That's not a real word. It's early in the morning here. I'm still pretty excited after UFC 137. Either way, good first round, and let's actually talk about the event. Let's get to there. Alrighty, let's break things down. UFC 137, how they transpired, how I predicted, and what it comes down to. Overall, I did 10 fights myself. Of the 10 fights, I got 8 right, 8-2, which is very good because I thought this was one of the most competitive cards we've seen in a long, long time. Let's start with the preliminaries. Chris Camozzi versus Francis Carmont. I took Carmont to win the fight by submission because he had subs in the past, and I felt like you could Camozzi on and maybe control him. He had a couple of opportunities, I think, to go for it. He looked good, earning a couple of 30-27s and a 30-26. He buddied Camozzi up badly. The only thing I'd like to see him do is maybe not clown his opponent so much. Go for it, fight respectfully, build up that reputation. Then if he wants to, fool around a little Cage Anderson Silva style, that's fine. But get another couple UFC belts under your belt. Next, Ramsey Najim versus Danny Downs. I took Najim by decision. I felt his wrestling would be too much for Danny Downs, and it simply was. He dominated from start to finish, short of getting caught in an awkward submission hold. Najim looked good. His striking looked a little bit better, but still there's holes there. Danny Downs just, I don't know if he needs to try and get down to featherweight if he can. He just doesn't seem to have what it takes to compete with solid wrestlers. There's a lot of those in the lightweight division. Light heavyweight bout, Elliot Marshall versus Brandon Vera. I took Brandon Vera by TKO. The only TKO we almost on that fight was Elliot Marshall TKO and Brandon Vera. Vera did win by decision, basically getting the first 2 rounds and then getting beat up in the 3rd round, getting stumbled a couple times and getting near submissions. I think he broke his arm, I believe, in that arm bar. Elliot Marshall actually had a good showing, and I think this fight shows that Brandon Vera, days as an elite fighter, are long past him. He could have said, "Oh, Thiago Silva was juicing, and that's why I couldn't win that fight." But Elliot Marshall should not. His bread and butter is BJJ. He should not be getting the better of you standing, Brandon Vera, and he clearly did with a couple big shots. So good for Vera to get a win. He could stick around one more, gets to recoup that arm being broken, but he's lacking that killer instinct that had him going when he was younger and one of the names to watch. Moving to the Spike prelims, Bart Palashevsky versus Tyson Griffin. I actually was in the process of arriving at the event after watching the Facebook prelims. I missed the fight. I caught the quick recap. Griffin, it was a catch weight bout at 148. Griffin struggled making weight, and all I saw was Palashevsky crippling him and dropping him. And I took Palashevsky to pull off the upset win. I believe I took it by decision. I felt he could just grind out Griffin, and Griffin wouldn't have anything for him. Palashevsky stopped him. He looks good. I think that almost knocks Griffin right out of the welterweight, or out of the featherweight item in the rankings after a debut win. For me, that puts Palashevsky in the rankings, so we'll see how things go from there, but Palashevsky looking very good. Good for him. Next, lightweight bout, Dennis Seaver versus Donald Cerrone. One of the two I got wrong. I took Dennis Seaver to win by decision. Donald Cerrone winning by submission. A lot of people took that, and that was a good one. And I even wrote on ShareDog that I felt that Donald Cerrone paid almost $2 to win by submission, and if people felt so strongly, that's definitely a pick to consider. So, yeah, Donald Cerrone win by submission. He caught Seaver with a couple big shots. Cerrone's for real. This kid is really rounding into form, and he's peaking at the absolute perfect time. He was a top-level competitor in WEC, but he lost a couple fights to Ben Henderson, which cost him his ability to win a title. He comes to the big show, and he's peaking. Dennis Seaver was a significant step up in competition. He handled him easily. He used his striking to put Seaver down. And Cerrone looked bigger, too, and that was a big issue. He used his striking to put Seaver down, finish him with submissions. I'm going to Donald Cerrone in the rankings. This will jump him above Dennis Seaver. This will probably jump him ahead of Jim Miller, who's been sitting up there. Now, recently, you've had Jim Miller, Melvin Gillard, and now Dennis Seaver, all guys who are working their way up the rankings, all lose and are now back of the pack. Especially, Clay Guida, Ben Henderson winning that title shot. Gilbert Melendez eventually coming over if he defeats Jorge Masvidal, because the way things are going, wouldn't it be something if Masvidal pulled off an upset over Gilbert Melendez? And it's just all these top sharks can't seem to continue their success to maintain a shot at the title. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on the fight. Donald Cerrone looked excellent. I got the fight wrong. Good for Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Next, Hatsu Aoki versus George Roop. I took Aoki by submission. He won by split decision. It was a very close fight. It was almost an uneventful fight. Aoki obtained some dominant positions. That looked good for him. Roop didn't look terrible. Roop didn't look bad at all. Is Aoki going to challenge for Jose Aldo's title belt? Not with a performance like that. I really think he needs at least another 2 wins under his belt. Maybe get more comfortable in the UFC, but I just don't see him challenging for a title shot. Roop did an excellent job containing him. Maybe it was the fact that Roop's height and reach were something Aoki had trouble dealing with, because he's not used to fighting guys on that big in the featherweight division. He's used to being the bigger fighter. But anyway, Aoki gets a win. Thanks to JMMA, Japanese MMA, not dead, as Aoki said in the post-fight. Good for him. Scott Jorgensen, Jeff Curran. This fight, Jorgensen, won a couple 29-28s and 30-27. Curran probably get another match out of this. It didn't look like Jorgensen said. It wasn't a young gun's performance. He didn't come out firing. He didn't didn't dominate start to finish. He did well, but it wasn't the type of fight where you say, "Oh, that guy is moving himself back in line for another shot at the title." you know, he's just maintaining his position. So Scott Jorgensen, he will come back strong. I enjoy watching him fight either way. I took him by decision, and it turned out to be a decision victory, so keep rolling. Up next, Mirko Cro Cop versus Roy Nelson. Roy Nelson, this was a tough fight to me. I originally thought about taking Mirko based on Roy's performance, where he runs out of gas, and I figured Mirko would pick him apart. Mirko looked, you know, okay. He didn't look terrible. But the biggest thing is Roy Nelson lost a significant amount of weight. He's tightened things up. He's bulked up muscle-wise. He's dropped down and got himself in better shape, and it showed. He fought a good fight, a high-tempo fight, and stopped Mirko in the third round. I took Nelson by TKO, stopped Mirko in the third round, mounting him and punching him out. Mirko subsequently, well, I don't know if the post-fight press conference he did announce his retirement. He said this was supposed to be his farewell fight. To me, it didn't sound like he was convinced he's retiring. And I'm seeing all over the place, like BloodyElbow.com, them posting Mirko Cro Cop retires. So unless I missed something in the post-fight press conference, and if I did, please let me know in the comments. I didn't see him retiring. I see him saying this was supposed to be my farewell fight. He could very well continue fighting. Maybe not in the UFC, but he could very well head over to Elite XC and fight Andrei Arlovsky and Tim Sylvia and Pedro the Rock Hizzo and guys like that, and still make some money. And I would not be shocked to see that happen. So either way, Nelson picking up the win. Cro Cop seemingly done in the UFC. Next, my second fight I got wrong. Czech Congo versus Matt Mitrione. Disappointed in Mitrione. The fight went 30-27, 29-27, 29-28. I didn't think Congo was that dominant. I don't know. The early rounds were uneventful. Czech Congo clearly won the third round, and Mitrione got beat up for the first time, got bloodied up. I don't know how. You didn't get a chance to really see him respond, because most of the time he's on his back. But Congo took it to him, and Mitrione did a lot of head feinting, but he did not get in there and attack. And I thought he had the speed advantage, and he should have had the ability to get in there and hammer Congo. What does this do for Czech Congo? I think he's, 3-0-1 in his last 4 bouts, so he's quietly climbing up there. I wouldn't mind seeing Congo versus Travis Brown. They had a draw in their last fight. Let those two rematch, and the winner gets to move on. Or if they don't want to line up Brown and Congo, let's line up Czech Congo and Roy Nelson, 2 heavyweights from this matchup, and let's see who moves up there. But Matt Mitrione, Brendan Schaub, 2 young fighters who are on a roll, moving up the rankings. Lose, they will drop down some, but I'm sure that, especially Mitrione, he has a lot of talent. I think he will learn from this matchup and continue to climb up the division rankings. But welterweight main event, BJ Penn versus Nick Diaz. And before I get into how this fight went down, I'd just like to read a comment someone posted. I'm not going to read their name because I don't want to call them out and offer them airtime. But they posted, "You're looking way too much into stats, which makes you an idiot." You referencing me, Kamikaze Overdrive. BJ is going to destroy Nick. I understand people, you don't agree with my picks, but to suggest that looking into stats makes you an idiot it almost suggests the opposite, or at least that you're the idiot. Because when it comes right down to it, I think my prediction short. I called Nick Diaz to win that fight. I said he'd win it by TKO. I thought he could overwhelm BJ, and he did. But BJ is a tough character, and we'll talk about him in a second. But what that fight came down to is that for every 1 shot BJ landed, Nick landed 2 or more. And yes, BJ won. BJ probably won the first round. Let's just take a quick look at the scoring. BJ definitely won the first round because he's 2:29-28, so 29-27. But Nick dominated, including clearly getting a 10-8 in one of the rounds. Absolutely dominated. I'm guessing it's the second round. Dominated BJ Penn, outstriking him, destroying his face. That was completely unbelievable. The way Nick didn't look pretty after the fight. He wasn't going to win any beauty pageants after that fight. But BJ looked worse for wear. The thing is, Nick cuts all the time. Nick, a strong wind blows in Nick's face, and he seems to get a cut, or at least, take a little bit of damage. BJ Penn's a tough guy. When was the last time you saw BJ Penn bloodied and battered and swollen like that? It's been a long time. Statistically, going back to the statistics of the fight, again, I claim Nick would land too many punches to deal with BJ. In the first round of that fight, BJ actually outlanded Nick 49-39, but I said, BJ will not be able to keep up with the pace of Nick Diaz. Case in point, second round, BJ Penn landed 20 punches. Nick Diaz, 127 punches in the second round. That is unbelievable. He landed more punches in the second round than BJ landed in the entire fight. Third round, Diaz 91 to BJ's 38 for a total of 257 strikes for Nick Diaz, 107 strikes for BJ Penn, 150 more. So Diaz in the end actually landed more strikes more strikes in the pen than Penn landed overall. So looking at statistics is a significant way to break fights down. Sure, it doesn't work all the time, and yes, you have to look at fighter heart and things like that. But when it comes right down to it, the cardio of Diaz and the reach of Diaz were probably enough to suggest he could win this fight. But the way he pressures opponents and gets them on the cage, and I said that he'd get him on the cage and he would blitz him and pound on him. And just those little 1, 2, 3 to the face and 1, 2 to the body, and it was just continual. And BJ was, when was the last time we saw BJ backing up and running like he did? He was circling away. Excuse me, circling away. It looked, BJ was in trouble. Nick took it to him. Now, BJ, let's go to the post-fight. So I finished 8-2 overall. Let's get to the post-fight shenanigans coming out of this. Nick Diaz looked mental. He was just so amped up after that fight, walking around. And he needs to just... I love emotion. I love when guys get fired up, but he needs to rein it in just a little bit. Just bring it back just a little bit. He called out George, and now he's going to get George. And I'm going to talk about that too. Just give me a second. I want to talk about BJ Penn. After the John Fitch fight, when BJ won the opening 2 rounds and then got dominated in the third draw, BJ pretty much said he didn't know what he wanted to do and made it sound like he was considering hanging him up. After this fight, he really didn't leave any doubt. Are we done seeing BJ Penn? In my opinion, money talks. Does he need the money? I don't know. Probably not. I'm sure he'll have a sit-down with Dana White, and Dana White will say, what do you want to do? And one thing, BJ said he doesn't want to go back to 155. What I would look at is that, at welterweight, BJ Penn, in the UFC, has 2 wins over Matt Hughes, and that's it. He has 4 losses at welterweight and a draw. So he's 2-4-1 at welterweight. He's a great fighter. Can he get back down to 155? I don't think so. Would it be lucrative for him to go back down to 155? Absolutely. A matchup with Gilbert Melendez, maybe Gray Maynard. There's a lot of guys at 155 that he could beat and go back to being a dominant fighter and continue his career. Will he do it? I don't know. I don't think he wants to make that weight cut anymore. But either way, if BJ Penn, just like Mirko Krokop, for both guys, if this is the last time we see you, thank you very much for all the effort you put in and for the entertainment and for 2 fantastic careers. Either way, good on you, and I wish you the best. Now, Nick Diaz, after the fight, he was calling out George Rush St. Pierre, the UFC welterweight champion, claiming that George was injured. I really don't, and it was ducking the fight. I don't think so, because he wasn't supposed to fight you, Nick. Think about this, friend. He was supposed to fight Carlos Condit, and basically Nick Diaz said, I want George, I want George. Carlos Condit has actually stepped aside. If you haven't heard this already, this is coming, I've read this everywhere, and it came at the post-fight press conference. Carlos Condit has offered to step aside. I'm guessing he will get the winner. And Nick Diaz is going to use that hype he built with the BJ Penn fight has earned him another shot at the title. He's going to fight George St. Pierre Super Bowl weekend in February, which will be huge. George will be recovering. It's going to be a very interesting fight. I'm sure the conspiracies will be out there that the UFC decided, okay, let's let Nick fight BJ. We're going to have Condit drop out of the fight with, George drop out of the fight with Condit, so that we can, if Nick wins, he can get an immediate shot. I really struggle to believe that, but Nick Diaz, the ultimate bad guy, against George St. Pierre, who is doing the little hand motions like, ooh, I'm scared. The ultimate good guy, George St. Pierre. They're going to clash Super Bowl weekend. They also, of course, we'd heard the Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva. That's when Chael wanted to have that fight. Could you imagine what that card would do Super Bowl weekend? George versus Diaz, Sonnen versus Silva. I can't see the UFC doing it because those are 2 headlining events that will make 2 separate pay-per-views absolutely fantastic and make them a lot of money. But at the same time, if they put them together, wow. But I can't see it. It's going to be St. Pierre Diaz in the main event, and then another time, if Silva does sack up and agree to fight Chael Sonnen, they will fight in a different main event. So, what a pay-per-view. 8-2 again. Fight of the night to BJ Penn and Nick Diaz, $75,000 each. I'll buy a lot of stuff for Nick Diaz, if you know what I'm talking about. Knockout of the night, Bart Palashevsky earning a huge knockout of the night. Submission of the night, Donald Cerrone. These guys all walk away with extra cash. Palashevsky moves himself up and gets, makes a little bit of noise in the featherweight division. Donald Cerrone makes a lot of noise in the lightweight division, so good for him. It was an excellent pay-per-view, 8-2. I think this is one of those tough matchups, or tough cards that could have gone either way. I think I've covered everything I wanted to talk about. Again, I appreciate all the comments, guys, and view-wise, I had over 1,300 views of the show right now, and I know it takes a couple days for all the views to trickle in over the weekend. I was hoping to crack 2,000. I still might. Give a couple shout-outs to some of my sponsors, sportsinteraction.com and MMAbettingodds.com, 2 sites that are Two great sites to help you with your betting. And again, I'm always looking for new associations, so if you have some kind of UFC or just anything, any sort of company, website, whatever, and you want to make build a relationship with Kamikaze Overdrive, email me. I'm open to all kinds of things. I do a lot of fun stuff, so get in touch and we'll see what we can do. I think that's enough for me. It's NFL Sunday. I'm going to go watch some football. I'm going to enjoy the success I had last night. I hope to have this up and running. I'm rendering my UFC 138 picks prediction show. I'm rendering it right now. It'll take a couple more hours, about 3 more hours from the time I'm filming this to get that online. I will start to get that finished, and then another 3 or 4 hours to get it online. I will start rendering this show right here as soon as possible. Get it online. Both of them should be up sometime tonight. But again, thank you for listening. It was a great UFC 138 was great. Kamikaze Overdrive MMA predictions. Get your picks in on time for UFC 138, or get them in as soon as possible. And look for that email. I'm out of here.